the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is facing legal action over the safety of women and children at the overrun Manston Migrants Centre.
Now, initial details of the court case were released as she toured the facility yesterday after arriving by helicopter. And we're now joined by Policing Minister Chris Philp. Good to speak to you this morning. Goodness me, it's all a mess, isn't it? First of all, let's talk about the situation with the immigration centre. Further reports today of asylum seekers, refugees being dumped on a station as there was the previous day, despite apologies for the fact that that went wrong, concerns for safety over people there. Must be so frustrating. Do you still have confidence in your boss, Suella Braverman?
Yes, I do. Just let me take each of those points in turn, if I may. So on the two groups of people that were dropped at Victoria Coach Station, I think they had said to the immigration officials at the Manston site that they had friends and family to go and stay with. That's why they were taken to Victoria Coach Station, because where people have friends and family they can stay with, that's obviously what they are expected to do. Now, it clearly turned out that that subsequently was not the case. Whether there'd been a miscommunication or something was lost in translation, I don't know. But as soon as it was clear that they did not have friends and family to go to, then they were obviously accommodated as quickly as possible. On Manston more generally, there's, I think, about 1,000 people have left Manston in the last week, so the numbers have dropped significantly, and a lot of work has been done, again, over the last 7 days to improve the facilities there and make sure that they are fit for purpose. And the reason that we've got these enormous challenges is that, 40,000 people this year have dangerously and illegally crossed the English Channel. Most of them are single. The vast majority are single young men. Albanian is the largest nationality amongst those. And of course, they're departing from France. And France is a safe, very civilised country with a very well-functioning asylum system. France is not a war zone. It's a safe country. There is no need for these crossings to be made in the first place. But because so many have been made this year, I think it's getting on for 40,000 now, it is overwhelming the system and leading, as tens of thousands of people in hotels. There are the pressures on Manston that you've referred to. So we need to find a way of stopping these illegal crossings to avoid these pressures arising in the first place.
Of course, and that's the big question, and nobody would support illegal crossings. They're dangerous, they don't help anybody. However, it's not the whole problem, is it? It's the source of the numbers arriving, but the lack of processing is part of the problem. Less than 4% being processed, which is unfair on those that have a legal right to stay here and unhelpful if they should be processed and sent back appropriately to other countries. So it's actually not just the horror of the crossing, it's a failure of the Home Office and the Immigration Service to make the system work as is.
So I know that the new Home Secretary is initiating work to speed up the decision-making around asylum. There has obviously been an enormous increase in intake because of the illegal and dangerous and unnecessary channel crossings that has caused these backlogs to develop. But I know the Home Secretary is focusing on that as an area. The other issue we have is that the way that some international treaties get interpreted by our domestic courts make it very hard sometimes to operate the immigration system and, for example, return people to their country of origin where an asylum claim has been dismissed, or even to remove dangerous foreign national offenders. So I think some attention needs to be paid to the way that case law, so judgments by courts, have expanded these very well-intentioned pieces of international treaty obligations or law to such a point that it becomes very, very difficult, almost impossible, to properly manage the country's borders, and it leads to these crossings coming across, which are totally unnecessary because France is a safe country. And it's worth keeping in mind that the UK is rightly very generous to people who are genuinely in need. We've welcomed 150,000 Ukrainians this year. I think 23,000 people from Afghanistan since the Taliban took over. There's over 100,000 people come from Hong Kong, fleeing persecution by the Chinese Communist Party. And when the Syrian conflict was on, I think about 20,000 Syrians were directly resettled over here. And those were vulnerable people, women, children, people who are sick. The people coming across the Channel are mostly fit, young, single men.
And it's the processing of the ones that shouldn't be here, which everybody's keen to try and improve, isn't it? Can we ask you a question about your new role? I know you've only been policing minister for just over a week. Usually it's Treasury issues that we'll be talking to you about, but now it's policing issues. I wonder what your reaction was to the police vetting report that was released earlier this week, found that hundreds of police officers had failed to be vetted correctly, or in the job when they really shouldn't have been. Of the 725 sample cases, 131 officers had concerns over their position and actually being capable of doing the job. Firstly, what was your reaction? And equally, what have you done to implement changes so this can't happen again?
Yeah, well, I was obviously very concerned by that report. It came out the day before yesterday, and it suggested there had been vetting failures, as you say. So there were 43 recommendations in that report. 3 of them were for the Home Office, 40 were for policing organisations. And I'd like to see all of those recommendations acted upon as a matter of urgency. Certainly the Home Office ones we're going to do as a matter of urgency.
And when you say urgency, the time frame for that, within the next few weeks? Is it the next few months? How long might that be?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to work through each of the recommendations in turn and work out the time frame will differ depending on the recommendation, but we're going to do it as quickly as we possibly can. The ones that are for the policing system, obviously I'll work with police forces and police chiefs to support them in implementing their recommendations. I think it's very important we do that for all of the obvious reasons. But the other point I would make is that while these concerns are very serious, we need to get them sorted out, no question about that. But of course, the vast majority of police officers are decent, hard-working and very brave individuals who are putting themselves often in the line of danger to protect us and our families. And I think we should just, thank the vast majority of officers who serve our communities for the work they do. I was out in Croydon just yesterday with emergency response officers and town centre foot patrol officers, and I could see the work they do, often in very difficult circumstances, to keep us and our families safe. And I think we should be grateful, really grateful for the work they're doing.
Undoubtedly recognise the importance of what they do when they're doing it right. It's good to hear that, as a matter of urgency, you're going to implement those 42 changes. Chris Philp, thanks for joining us this morning.